Screws supporting the Athearn motor go through the bottom of the fuel tank. The flywheels are removed from the Athearn motor and the drive shaft is flattened into a D profile. The ball joint coupler is held onto the D shaft by a retaining screw. The worm gear on the inboard truck has to have a longer shaft to hold the ball joints. The worm gear is removed from the original shaft using a Northwest Shortline gear puller. The worm gear is put onto a longer length of 2.4mm steel shaft. Here's a view of the longer worm gear shaft for the inboard truck. Okay, let's take a look at the finished drivetrain for my Freelanced Alco C-860 double diesel. Everything starts with the trucks, the B-B trucks. So the truck distance is placed to what's pleasing and what's not going to interfere. That determines the length of the bolster between the center points for each of the trucks. The next thing that we have to look at is the total length of the wheelbase, and that is from one gear tower to the next gear tower. This must all fit inside of the shell. So now, with the wheelbase determined, the next important measurement is the distance from this ball joint on the Athearn gear tower over to this ball joint. And as we'll see in just a minute, there isn't a lot of space there. Here is the Athearn Blue Box motor with flywheels that comes out of a standard 4-axle locomotive. And what you can see is that from the universal joint right here, the slip shaft, over to here, there is not enough space to keep the original flywheels. So those flywheels have been removed. The next thing that has to happen is the drive shaft on the Athearn Blue Box motor has to be made smaller. Now these ball joints are made for the same diameter shaft as the worm gear, which is 2.4 millimeters. I don't know the English equivalent. The motor is much larger than that. So with my numbered drill set, I gradually drilled out the hole on the ball joint until it fit over the shaft motor. But because my precision is not great, there wasn't enough friction to hold it in place. So I created a flat spot on the drive shaft of the motor, and then I'm using a set screw to press down on that flat profile, that D profile, to hold the ball joint in place. Now, with the ball joint attached to the motor, the next thing is the distance from the inner gear tower out to its ball joint and sliding shaft. So the distance between the new ball joint on the inboard gear tower and the ball joint on the motor is shorter than the Athearn shaft drive. The other thing that is a problem is these ball joint couplers here are too long. They will occupy more space than is what's needed here. So these have been shortened, and these have as well. You can see that it's not quite as dramatic, but there is some play there. I then custom made some shafts because I was going to have to be making shafts anyway. The next thing we had to do was this worm gear. If we use the worm gear that Athearn provides, there's no extra shaft over here. So for this intermediate or inboard worm gear, the worm gear itself is removed from the shaft. I then put it on a length of 2.4 millimeter steel rod to create a lengthened rod. Then put the ball joints back on. These ball joints happen to have come from a previous attempt at a project, so these have been shortened. We then go back out to the standard Athearn ball joint sliding shaft coupler. We can see my homemade sliding shaft draft gear, and then finally the motor. So this is the setup for my Freelanced Alco B-B+B-B C-860. Thanks very much.